What the hell do you want, you little turd?
The new Pokemon Scarlet and Violet games are coming out. Could I borrow your credit card?
Did you say Scarlet and Violet? What do they do, a full circle? Back to naming their games after colors?
I guess so.
You already have every other Pokemon game.
So?
It's the same formulaic garbage, Morty. You played one Pokemon game, you played them all.
Well, the new ones, you could drive the Pokemon around like a motorcycle.
What, did they get sponsored by Harley Davidson?
What?
I forgot, you're Gen Z. You probably never seen an ape hanger.
That doesn't potentially offensive.
You know what's offensive, Morty? These greedy corporations, Morty. Every year they take the same product and just tweak it slightly. Next to no changes, Morty. Then they pump billions of dollars into marketing. So retarded whiny toddlers like you will throw your allowance at them.
I don't think you should say that word.
Allowance?
The R slur.
Bitch, I'm autistic as fuck.
The concept around Nintendo's apparent issues is rather simple, but I want to dive into details about all the issues with the games as well. If you want to see more Pokemon-related content in the future, like this vid and catch the wild subscribe button so I can join your party. Okay, the cringe intro is done, onto the video. The Pokemon fanbase grows more resentful of the world's largest franchise with every release. I and myself, while purchasing Pokemon Shield and Brilliant Diamond, haven't really played them. I'm just expressly disappointed with some major issues with the gameplay that I cannot unsee now that I've actually played video games besides Pokemon. It's important to understand the market and target audience if you want to successfully sell a game like Pokemon, which is niche to the point where there are few other games that can even be compared to it. Legends of Zelda has lots of storyline and people enjoy the puzzle and adventure aspects. I myself absolutely despise puzzle games. I play to shut off my brain and relax, not give myself any aneurysm. I fucking hate Zelda. Rant over. Pokemon, like Zelda, have extremely deep lore, and the game gives you so many tools to express yourself creatively. A fully customized team, thousands of different attacks to choose from, alternative abilities, battle items that shake up the entire meta like Focus Sash and Choice Specs. It gives the player base so much freedom in terms of gameplay, much like Minecraft does. If you like a specific Pokemon, there's many different strategies and directions you can go with it, and competitive players continually subvert build expectations. A very prominent example being Pachirisu in the competitive meta. I believe Minecraft and Pokemon have a similar issue. It seems like these companies make so much money that they could create bestsellers again and again if they wanted to. But every successful game is a shot in the dark, and no humble person would have guessed these games would have exploded in popularity to these insane proportions. So now we've established the Pokemon community is basically an island, and that could partially be since there's few games like it, whereas Call of Duty and Halo can be seen as different iterations of the same gameplay concept. We've also established that the game gives the player, you, a crazy amount of creative freedom, just like Minecraft, and people like being creative. There's two subjectively good things the game has going for it, so why does it get hate and memed on? The answer may not surprise you, but the graphics are a major point of contempt. With Pokemon being as widespread popular and the company making so much money, they have the funds to make the next Halo, or Doom, or Minecraft, but with better graphics. Metaphorically speaking, because they wouldn't make those games, they would just create a game that has the same long-lived effect on the market as those games I mentioned have. Why don't they do that? Well, they're still riding off the success of their first few games. They found a recipe that works, and they're gonna keep churning out cakes. But there's one massive issue with that. If they keep following the same formula, won't people get tired and leave the fanbase because it gets stale? Like, pizza is good, but everybody likes to mix up the toppings now and then. Pokemon has made a few side entries to try new stuff, the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games and Pokemon Rumble, for example. They don't get as much light shed on them as the main series does, which I think is a shame because Explorers of the Sky is one of the best video games I've ever played. It's difficult without requiring grinding. It benefits you to play with a strategy and be smart about what you're doing. RNG is balanced really well in this game. Funny given that all the dungeons are randomized maps. And the storyline, the writing works super well. Super emotional, sad ending. Even the soundtrack is fantastic, and even though the game has been out for a decade, I still listen to the soundtrack. But back to the main series. The Pokemon Company knows they can't follow the same formula game after game, so they have to mix it up a little. Try new ingredients, like Z Crystals and Sun and Moon, basically one-hit items. Mega Evolution, make your Pokemon go Super Saiyan at the expense of they can't use any other items. Implementing seasons, the locations and Pokemon at said locations change depending on the season and time of day. This one I was personally a fan of as it makes the world feel more alive. Every time I replay the Gen 5 games, it feels different as the environments are different. Even if only slightly, it's still a breath of fresh air to me. These are all unique circumstances applied to each game individually. The new ingredients introduced to the Pokemon batter. It's like cheesecake. Every year you get it, but each year there's a different flavor of frosting. I say frosting and not the whole cake because the gameplay and battling is 95% the same, the only difference being quality of life updates to move and status conditions. This is how they prevent the games from getting stale, but personally I feel they aren't doing enough to mix it up because I absolutely loathed Pokemon Shield. I only forced myself to see it through to the end because a friend wanted to do Isle of Armor, or whatever with me after beating the game, something I didn't do because I hated the experience so much that I absolutely refused to buy any more Pokemon after that. I did keel and buy the remakes of Gen 4 because Diamond was my first Pokemon game. However, the gameplay was so buggy and even only playing it for an hour, I really just wanted to go back to the original versions. It's clear I am very unsatisfied with Pokemon as of late. I didn't even buy Legends Arceus, even though it's different from the main series. However, I saw nothing to confirm that the stuff I hated about the previous Pokemon games wasn't going to hinder my experience of this one as well. Before we go over why Pokemon will never improve, I feel it's important to call attention to each aspect they could improve at. So with each new release, and in retrospective, we can see every failure the company is willingly committing to because their quarterly profits do a lot better when they raise the bar only by the smallest amount year over year. Those areas the games could improve at and the reasons I now dislike the gameplay of Pokemon is exclusively for the reasons of there are no skippable cutscenes, players are forced to take incessant Pokemon Center trips, the level pacing is not consistent, too much filler, and single-use TMs restrict the creativity I once complimented the game on having. Now before you dismiss all of these because you simply disagree, it's absolutely fine if you don't personally have a problem with each of these things. But I take massive issue with all of these because all 5 of these reasons is why I don't replay Pokemon anymore and why I may never buy another Pokemon game ever again. I can't be the only one who feels this way. If Pokemon doesn't improve in any of these areas in their next release, I'm just going to crap on the company endlessly out of spite. I honestly don't think they'll fix any of these issues whatsoever, but we're not at that point yet, so let's cover the gameplay aspects that ruins the experience of Pokemon. No skippable cutscenes. I didn't even realize this was a thing implemented in most video games until I played Doom Eternal, where even though most of the cutscenes are less than a minute long, some less than 30 seconds, you can just press a button and it immediately brings you back to the gameplay. Halo has this too. Hold down the spacebar and skip a cutscene. When I initially played Halo, I never did this because I always thought it was rude and disrespectful. I didn't realize how much I love this feature until I played Doom. Over and over and over and over, I can beat the entire campaign in Doom Eternal in under 5 hours. I have over 500 hours of gameplay on that. I've basically beaten it 100 times. Pokemon forces you to sit and button mash your way through unnecessary dialogue where you can't do anything but. They don't even have recordings of the characters' voices to make it more interesting. They just have a few basic animation the character models do here and there. Giving an option to skip all of these dialogue moments would massively increase the replayability. Speedrunners even practice the correct cadence to button mash through dialogue to get through it as fast as possible. That's retarded, Nintendo. Halo Reach even has characters speaking dialogue in the background, so even when they go over story details, you're still doing the thing that you're playing the game to do. Kill aliens, drive sci-fi vehicles. If in Pokemon, characters spoke their dialogue and let you go through your bag, heal a Pokemon, swap out your team, or teach TMs and whatnot, it would improve the tedious and stupid button mashing issue. Whenever these moments come up in the game, I just walk to the bathroom with my controller in hand and button mash while I take a piss. I'm not even doing anything in the game, but I'm required to actively wear out my controller just to continue on playing the game, just because Nintendo wants to give you the opportunity to read what the characters are saying. Does Nintendo know voice actors exist? There's no need to read when we could have something read to us. That's much more interesting. This issue is virtually the same when you visit the Pokemon Center. I'm tired of seeing the same restoration sequence over and over and over again. I get it, just get through the dialogue. I get it's nice as the animations make the world feel more full, and that's something Nintendo's extremely good at doing, making the worlds and environments feel alive. But we're playing to have fun, not gawk at Nintendo's low-budget animations. That's not even the main issue I take with Pokemon Centers. Every time you battle somebody, unless you want to risk your Pokemon dying from 1,000 cuts, you have to go back to the Pokemon Center. It's the de facto base of operations in Pokemon games, as you go there more often than you go to fight somebody or catch Pokemon. The whole game ironically revolves around you repeatedly going to the Pokemon Center to heal your Pokemon. I didn't think this was an issue in the past, but then I started playing online competitive battles, and the bliss I felt going from one battle to the next and the next without having to open up my bag and sort through healing items was amazing. It was perfect. Competitive battling changed the way I perceive Pokemon permanently by just being a better experience overall. This would be an easy fix if they made the entire game like this. You win a battle, your Pokemon are immediately healed upon victory. That would give them so much room to make the game more interesting, and would give Nintendo the ability to make random trainer encounters with higher stakes, as they don't have to underpower the trainer's Pokemon just to make it not aids to travel each route. They've already made the PC accessible while you're wherever in the game. Might as well make healing Pokemon just as accessible, or just do away with it entirely with this new mechanic so it's no longer an issue. Going to the battle tree, your Pokemon are always fully healed between every single battle. In my opinion, it's the definitive best battling experience because with each win, the game gets progressively harder, just like the gym leaders and the Elite Four are supposed to be. I would spend hour after hour in Pokemon Sun at the battle tree because it rewards strategy and good thinking rather than brawn over brain, as all the Pokemon are set to the same level. No grinding is necessary whatsoever, which is what the trainers along all the routes are for, giving you levels for the next gym, except they serve that role poorly, or at least they did until Generation 5. Those trainers are practical for level pacing. You can skip past a ton of them if you want, but your Pokemon will be underleveled when you make it to the next gym, and you'll have a much harder time playing the game. So generally in any playthrough, I battle every single trainer I come across out of necessity. Game Freak fixed it so well in X and Y that your Pokemon were always overleveled, forcing them to go back a bit. Right now, as of Sword and Shield, I think the leveling is balanced pretty well. In the later half of the game, you have to fall onto the strategy over power. As in my first playthrough, when I went through the spree of battling all the gym leaders all over again before the championship battle, nearly all my Pokemon were 10 levels below my opponents, so I had to use my competitive experience. This could be frustrating to new players who feel forced to grind, which comes back to the original problem. Battling trainers gives Pokemon more experience than wild Pokemon, so there's no reason to skip the trainers and stick to leveling against random encounters that yield less experience. One of my biggest issues with every Pokemon game before Generation 5 is, unless you have a Pokemon with a type advantage over the next gym, even with all the trainers on the way to battling the gym, your Pokemon are still going to be underleveled, and you are nearly required to do level grinding if you aren't metagaming or following speedrun strats. If you don't know what metagaming is, it's taking everything you know outside of the game and using those factors to determine how you approach the game. For example, I know everybody is using Zapdos in the competitive Pokemon scene because Zapdos is is fast, hits hard, and has great setup options with 3 potential build-arounds. So I'm going to use a rock type with high special defense so it can take care of all the Zapdos everybody else is going to use. Following a strategy like this in order to beat a gym battle without level grinding or using healing items is pretty much the only way to make do. I recently used the same tactics in a Nuzlocke playthrough of Pokemon Shield because a level pacing in that game does not help you win against a gym unless you have tricks up your sleeve. This is bad level pacing, giving the player resources to stay on track to keep playing the game, but also not giving them enough, forcing them to mill around in the grass for hours, button mashing to kill Pokemon just so they can continue playing the game. It's super ironic that it forces you to play the game in order to play the game, but fighting wild Pokemon incessantly has never been the selling point of Pokemon. Catching wild Pokemon and battling other trainers has been its MO so far, not massacring wildlife just so you can progress in the game. Pokemon Black and White and the sequels Black and White 2 are, in my opinion, the very best entry points for literally anybody looking to start playing Pokemon, because those games don't do this. You can successfully do a Pokemon White 2 Nuzlocke with 0 level grinding and still have it be a fun and difficult challenge. Even if you do want to level grind and use a very specific Pokemon, the game implements the shaking grass mechanic. You can walk around until grass shakes and fight an Audino, which gives you a titanic amount of experience for defeating. While I get this doesn't fix the issue of grinding, it makes it far more manageable, as you can do this quote-unquote Audino training for half an hour and be ready to face the next gym challenge if you're falling behind. Whereas in Pokemon Shield, I did 2 hours of grinding and my Pokemon only increased 4 levels, as opposed to you could get 4 levels in 10 minutes in Pokemon White thanks to the Audinos. The incessant grinding in Pokemon reminds me of RuneScape, where you just incessantly click on tasks over and over again to gain minuscule XP. I think I calculated once, you basically have to mine for 60 hours straight in RuneScape in order to max out your mining stat. That garbage isn't fun, it requires no thought, just incessant button mashing just like Pokemon. Usually in Pokemon, the wild ones in the grass are much lower level than yours, and yours are much lower level than the gym leaders, so you get very little experience from each kill, so you have to do it over and over and over again, for 2 hours, and even then, you're still under-leveled for the gym challenge. I get that if you're put at a disadvantage, it forces you to be more creative and find a solution, but if a game relies on handicapping you to make it an actually fun experience, that's retarded. And that's why I only play Nuzlocks in the past few years, because I cannot enjoy Pokemon games whatsoever if there wasn't more significance placed on battling all the trainers, and in some cases, forcing you to go into a battle at a type disadvantage. If the games were strategically more difficult, that would make it more interesting, but the hardest part about the entire game is just making sure all your Pokemon are strong enough to actually play the game. Pokemon Black and White fixed that. That's why I love those games. It doesn't force you to grind just to play. This became a criticism Pokemon X and Y were berated for, since they went so far as overcorrecting this. The game was too easy since all your Pokemon were basically overleveled in any circumstance. So they backpedaled on that a bit, so while I feel in that circumstance it did detract from the gameplay, I feel it was a good step in the right direction, just a step too far. Regardless, if I want to play Pokemon Ruby, Leaf Green, Heart Gold, Platinum, I'm basically required to spend hours level grinding just to beat the game. Even if I go with the team of Pokemon with all super effective attacks against my opponents, still required to grind, because the gaps in level between opponents are very noticeable. While the trainers dotted along routes are helpful for filling the power gaps in your Pokemon, there's still another glaring issue with all of them. Literally all of them, and that's because it's all filler. When I think of Pokemon, I think of catching team members, battling gym leaders, the Elite Four champion, and defeating the big bad villain of the game, which are all very enjoyable things about Pokemon, and I would enjoy Pokemon because of it, if that weren't only 10% of the game. Looking back at most of my vanilla playthroughs, unless I was speedrunning, each game typically took me around 24 hours to beat, and out of that 24, typically around only 2 hours is spent actually battling important trainers or going through plot events. Literally, the other 90% of the game is battling weak peon trainers on routes who only serve the purpose of giving you easy levels and walking place to place. That's it, that's 90% of the game, walking and battling weaklings. Part of why I exclusively play Nuzlocke now is because of those trainers. There's absolutely zero significance to them in the grand scheme of the game, so the permadeath rule is the only way to artificially inflate their value to make those trainers matter more. Thanks to Nuzlocke, now 60% of the game actually matters because those trainers along the routes finally have gameplay relevance aside from punch my Pokemon, here's some XP. Nuzlocke playthroughs are the solution to boring trainer encounters, but there's still one issue that no matter what will always grind my gears regardless of how many times I play, and mostly because it's not a noticeable issue early on. That being, one of my favorite parts about Pokemon Shield is the small towns. Everything is so close together and condensed nicely that it only takes you a second to get from place to place, which makes the early game very enjoyable. As the game progresses, we get to towns and cities that take a minute just to walk through. A city with the big purpose of only being aesthetic. This problem is mitigated some by the bicycle, allowing you to travel faster and not put up with Nintendo's crap. I get that they're going for these large grand cities to fill the world, but you gawk at it once and you're like, I need to get to the Pokemon Center for the 100th time, and if it's taking you a second just to get there, and then it takes even more time to watch the cutscenes of your Pokemon healing, and given how many times we've all done this, I wonder how many hours we've all spent playing Pokemon and how many of those hours is just Ben walking to and fro the Pokemon Center. At least for the PC boxes, we don't swap out Pokemon as much. While it was a nice upgrade, ultimately not as much an issue compared to this. I love spending hours walking around in an environment I've seen 100 times. It doesn't get old at all. Obviously, if we spend more time walking than battling trainers, it's important, right? Coming to a console near you, Pokemon Shoes and Pokemon Eyes, where we have you walk around and see our shitty 3D graphics that everyone makes fun of us for incessantly. Pokemon really needs to have a fast forward feature for stuff like this. I think a long time ago I was using an emulator for Pokemon Ruby. It had a fast forward feature. I literally beat the entire game in 4 hours because that's just how much time you save by not worrying about walking and talking. That's less than 20% of the time it would take you to beat the game otherwise. I went into this video to explain why Pokemon games were never going to improve, but just going over all the problems they could potentially fix so that they could improve if they wanted, this is making me think Pokemon is actually just a really bad game. I believe the only reason it got so popular is because of cool monsters with strategy mechanics and a community that thrives off the surplus of characters and lore without the developers actually having to make a good game. That's the reason the anime is so popular. World building and huge cast plus cute and cool monsters. The anime is intended for kids though, meanwhile plenty of adults still buy and play every new installment of this game, where even if they fix an issue, they go back and ruin it all over again. They actually fixed the TM issue, but come Pokemon Sword and Shield, they went back on their good deeds and removed player options at the expense of grinding watts in the Wild Zone. I already praised Generation 5 for fixing the leveling issue, but they also fixed the technical machine issue. In every other game, I would literally not use any of the TMs whatsoever because you only get one of each for a save file, and I didn't use them because I didn't want to accidentally waste it on a Pokemon. So I just opted to not worry about it and ignore them altogether. The TMs became useless to me, and to a lot of people probably, but with unbreaking TMs, you could actually use those moves you're given and try them out, better customized teams, and given that you could teach Flamethrower and Earthquake to your whole party, it would have been overpowered, but the enemies in Generation 5 were also extremely strong, so you were nearly forced to use these powerful items if you wanted to breeze through the game without healing incessantly. You could call this bad game design if you want, but players already liked these attacks and wanted to use them more. It's like taking the best guns in Halo that everybody wants to use anyway, making a game with them more readily available and designing the whole game with those guns in mind. Gamers like it when companies design games with them in mind. It's important to notice that with the unbreaking TMs, they increased the power of a lot of attacks. Tackle was boosted to 50 rather than 35, as it had been for a while, which actually made it viable in the early game, as Lillipup would get a stab bonus for it and would do a good amount of damage that made you hold off on forgetting that move soon as another option came, allowing you to teach all these moves to as many Pokemon as you want. That granted a lot more freedom to you as a player. Then Sword and Shield only gave you that option with a few and took away that freedom for the rest. I basically discounted TMs overall in those games, didn't really mess with them anymore, just like I had in Platinum and Leaf Green. Black and White were good because they expanded the move pool options with the TMs. Giving the players more to work with allows them to do more in the game. Taking that away from them gives them less freedom and less room to be creative in what they do, and that's where Sword and Shield went back on what they had done in previous games. Now those are all things they could improve: the leveling, the filler, cutscenes, TMs, Pokemon Center. Now we can talk about why they probably won't improve those things. As a company is, and because capitalism, as much as it's made all the things I love, quarterly profits are a stain so smelly it cannot be ignored. What am I getting at with this? Netflix had similar quality of product issues, but they took a route to amend them and fell into a pit that Pokemon is intentionally avoiding by not fixing the mistakes. Pokemon could amend all of their gameplay issues, but it could be a detriment to their company the way it was for Netflix. Netflix was known for pumping out really garbage original content. Then it became a meme that Netflix originals were a disgrace to the industry. Netflix saw the memes and went ham on making some revolutionary content. BoJack, She-Ra, Dragon Prince, Castlevania, and Arcane. They raised the bar for themselves so high that it became unsustainable. After making several epic series and movies, new writers and filmmakers that were given shows could not compete with the content Netflix had poured its resources into prior. Disenchantment, Paranormal Park, Farzar, The Witcher. Even though these new shows are technically good and not terrible, they're nothing compared to the former releases. People's discontent followed these shows after the newfound quality they expected. This caused a series of controversies regarding the new releases and dropped the company's stock a frightening amount. People were laid off as funds decreased, the shareholders withdrawing, and the company's reputation damaged. This is why the Pokemon Company will never make something so exceptional it transcends its previous iterations, because they will be held to a new standard that, if deviated from, will damage their company more than the reputation they gain from exceeding expectations in the first place. Of course, I will eventually return to Pokemon, but all these issues with it they really get to me. It's like, why did I even play this game? If I had known all these issues before I got into Pokemon, I might have never been interested in Pokemon in the first place. At least the games. I grew up with the anime. It was on TV. We had some of the VHSs. The Pokemon cards were fun. Yes, I know how to play the Pokemon trading card game. It is interesting. I once tried to make a YouTube channel about doing the card game Let's Plays, but it didn't take off just because the community around that is very different from the rest of the games, I imagine. As far as the vibes I get from going to game stores where people are playing the game, it's just a slightly different breed of the casual gamer. So these are all my thoughts, these are all my opinions. Thanks for watching the video. If you want to see more gameplay analysis like this, make sure to subscribe and let me know which game you want to see in the future, and I'll see you in the next one.